Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Turbo Omaha podcast. My name is Alex. With me as always is my good buddy Sean, and there's a lot to talk about today. Already early into this offseason, we're looking at some trades, we're looking at some tags, we're looking at some releases. We're going to kind of take some predictions into how we think the 2025 season is going to go. But let's just start with some of the top news. I think probably the biggest, at least so far, got to be Debo going to the Commanders. I think it's a smart move for the Commanders. I think it's a smart move. They got him for pennies on the dollar. A 5th-round pick, I think, is what they traded for him.
Rounder.
That's a good investment. I know he was kind of a non-factor last year. 51 receptions for 670 yards. But he's averaging 14.3 yards a reception for his career and also 5.7 a carry, because a lot of people forget that he does a lot of ground game too. He's very much a dual threat. So I think it's going to be a good thing for him. A lot of people talk about how he drops the ball or whatever. I think he just needs a change of scenery. He goes to Washington. He lines up opposite Terry McLaurin. I think that's going to be a really scary duo, especially with rising star Jaden Daniels. He plays the way he did last year. I think Debo is going to have a really solid season.
Interested to see how he does. Eventually, we'll have one of my best friends on this planet, Bo, on the podcast. He's a big 49er fan. So, of course, just like I watch a bunch of Bengals games, watch a bunch of 49er games, we're almost over there every Sunday. I remember a lot of drops that he had, man. And yes, people are going to talk about it because it's a big deal. They were last game of the season. I think it was against the Rams. Don't quote me on that, but big drop to get a first down, to extend their potential game-winning drive. And he's getting paid $27 million for this year that he's going to be with the Commanders until they potentially restructure him, extend him if he has a good season, whatever. So it doesn't hurt. It's a lot of money, but I do think it's good for the Commanders. I'm curious how it's going to be for the 49ers. They've always been able to spread out the offense, and Brandon Ayuk was always number 2 to Debo's number 1. So it's just going to be interesting, especially Brandon Ayuk. Last season, he wanted to go to Washington. He made that big old stink, but now Debo got to go. So It's curious on both sides how San Francisco will recoup. Maybe they'll go after a wide receiver in free agency. One we'll talk about in here shortly that they can't go after. Stupid. We'll talk about that. But a lot of upside, but it's going to be one of those things where if Debo performs like last season, that's $27 million down the toilet.
Yeah. I think, it's kind of he is talented, but in San Francisco, if it's him and Brandon Ayuk, you've got a couple of options. And then that's kind of like, any good wide receiver tandem in the NFL. You double up one, the other gets open, or you try to play zone and then they find a seam, things like that. But with Brandon Ayuk being hurt last year, that kind of all fell on Debo, and that makes it really easy to double him up or, keep him in check. I think the 49ers, I don't think they're going to go after a wide receiver. I think they're going to hope Ayuk comes back ready to go, and I think they're going to rely a lot on Ricky Pearsall Jr. I think
cool story.
It is. It's a great story.
Yeah.
I like the kid a lot. And I think 49ers seem to just have this way of like getting these really cool stories, and then all of a sudden these kids are like great. Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall Jr. I want to see Ricky Pearsall succeed. And I think if he's lined up now as their sort of definitive number 2 behind Ayuk, I think he's going to have a good season. So
the 49ers are kind of toast last season when CMC was put on the cover of Madden. I remember telling my buddy that, and he was like, "Oh no, it'll be all right. The curse, it didn't go last couple." Yeah, it hit CMC hard. So I'm sure the offense is going to look a lot better because we don't have CMC in the backfield. That definitely limits a lot of options. So
not only did they not have CMC, they ended up having to go to like their fucking 5th running back or something, didn't they? Yeah, like all 4 of their running backs that were not practice squad players all got fucking hurt. So yeah, it definitely makes your offense very one-dimensional when you cannot at all rely on your running back. So you kind of have to pass, and that makes it very, very easy to predict what's going to happen. And then even if you do hand the ball off, you're handing it off to some fucking undrafted second string on the
dollar that they picked up at Walmart.
Exactly. So, I think the Niners are going to have a decent bounce back next year. I don't know that they're going to be the kind of Super Bowl contenders, or at the very least NFC Championship contenders that they've been for the last 5-6 years, but I think they're gonna have a much better season next year. But yeah, I think Debo in Washington is going to be good for Debo and Washington. I think it's going to work out well. I think
strong number 2 next to Scary Terry.
Yeah, and I mean Terry put up numbers last year, kind of just as a solo guy doing his thing. So you got now Debo, who, like we said, is kind of a dual threat, good wide receiver, great at running the ball. I think it's going to work out well. For everyone involved.
Yeah, Noah Brown, Damari Brown. Yeah, they don't have many big names. I mean, they got Luke McCaffrey, so Debo's still going to have a McCaffrey in his locker room. So, it's a good fit if Debo can be the Debo that they're hoping he can be. If he's a Debo last season, it's a lot of money to spend on a guy that's declining. Let's be honest for what's happening.
He's just got to be a little bit better than mediocre. If he's, maybe finishes, he finished 51 receptions this year. If he bumps that up to 70, maybe 900 yards, a gang of touchdowns, 4 or 5 of them, I think that's money well spent. Because if he's putting up numbers like that, then what's Terry McLaurin going to do? He's going to be putting up bigger numbers. So it's if he can just have himself in a slightly better than mediocre season, totally worth it.
Yeah, because Terry had 82 receptions. Zach Ertz was number 2 at 66. So 51 would be decent on that team. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll definitely see.
Well, from one wide receiver to another, Bengals have officially placed their franchise tag on T. Higgins. I won't delve too deep into it because just on our last 2 episodes it's come up. I've said my piece on it, pay the man. But it sounds like they're doing this with the intention of working out a long-term deal. Assuming that's the case, I'll be very, very happy. But I know damn near almost every NFL team was hoping that wasn't going to happen because they wanted to scoop him up. So, I won't delve too deep into that just because I have already the last 2 weeks, but we know my stance on it.
Yeah. And I think everybody knows my stance too. I mean, he's going to get paid $26.2 million this season on the tag. It sucks for him, 2nd year in a row. At least according to ESPN, it is, quote, Cincinnati has expressed optimism the team can get the deal done this offseason.
Yeah.
So optimism, hopeful. I mean, those words probably suck to hear for you. Probably suck to hear for T. Higgins. The more they push this out, the harder it's going to be, is my 2 cents. And I think it's interesting when you look around the sporting world. There's no such thing as a franchise tag in any other major sport. So for this to still be something in the NFL and for this to, quite honestly impact $26 million. Okay, dude, you're fine for money, but still principle that I can understand, getting paid your worth and appreciated. And you're one of my best friends on this planet, so I'm knocking on wood. If he blows a knee, if he blows an ankle, I mean, that sucks for him. And
that's something Jesse Bates was talking about 3 or 4 years ago when we franchise tagged him. He says playing under the franchise tag is horrible because it's kind of like a 1-year prove it deal, but you have to go out there and play your ass off. And if you don't play to expectations, then you're not going to get the contract. And then you look bad trying to look for another team. Or if you go out there and you blow your knee out, now, you have no team to go to and you're coming off of an injury. So, I agree. I think the franchise tag is a really shitty thing, especially to do it to the same player 2 years in a row.
2 years in a freaking row,
that
man.
Really, really sucks. And I feel so bad for T. Higgins, but assuming they actually work out a long-term deal, I think it's all worth it in the end. And they are clearly making room in the cap to do stuff like that by releasing Sheldon Rankins, who I believe was a $9.7 million cap hit, and Alex Kappa, as of today, who was an $8 million cap hit. And I think those were 2 moves that made a lot of sense. Sheldon Rankins did not do much last year. He was hurt for a good portion of it. And Alex Kappa, man, I was so excited when we signed him because he was so good with the Bucks protecting Tom Brady. This year, he was tied for first in sacks allowed. He was solo first in pressure allowed, and he was solo first in hurries allowed. The only thing he had going for him was he played, I think, the fourth most snaps of any guard in the NFL. So he's very, very healthy. He doesn't get hurt. He's out there just about every snap. But what good does that do you when he's just getting blown by every fucking play? So,
I'm sad you took that thunder from me because I had a picture of that on my phone from this morning. The Bengals had 2 triple crowns on their team. Of course, one being Jamar Chase and one being your boy with his pressures. And I'm sad you took that away from me.
Yeah, no, I mean, as soon as he got released, I was like, I was bummed at first because in my mind, I'm still like, why are we letting an offensive lineman walk when our offensive line is what needs the most help? But then after doing a little bit of research, I was like, wait, no, he fucking sucked. That's why we're letting him go. That's why we're not going to pay him $8 million. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I appreciate your optimism in your owners, but it's the second year in a row, man. If I'm T. Higgins, am I gonna hold out a little bit harder? Am I gonna practice this harder? Am I gonna do this as hard? Am I gonna do that as hard? I mean, second year in a freaking row, man. That sucks for him. Hopefully you're right. Your faith is gonna be rewarded here at some point before the season starts that he does get a long-term deal, but yeah, we'll see.
I will say, in all of my years of watching the Bengals, this is by far the most effort I've seen them put into the cap. Cutting dead weight, cutting players that are not performing, saving, almost $18 million with just 2 players that they are like, no, you didn't work out. Let's move on. Bengals are not very good at that. They're very good at getting a player on a pretty decent deal, and then he underperforms, but they were like, but we're not paying him a lot, so just keep him in there. And this does seem to be a new trend of, I obviously no big signings or anything like that yet, but this is still exciting because it feels like they're creating more money in anticipations of some big signings, whether that's just re-signings like Trey Hendrickson, T. Higgins, obviously Jamar Chase. There's a lot of talk that he's going to be the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. So it sounds like they are making some room for those big things. And like I said, whether that's just re-signing these players or, God fucking forbid, they go out and they like sign someone worth a damn and spend some money. Crazy, I know. It seems like they're prepping for that, and that's not something I'm used to seeing. So that's pretty exciting.
It's interesting too, because looking at the NFLPA report card, 1,700 players were pinged across the NFL for each team, and Cincinnati did get a C on their owner. And I mean, that's only worse, or they're only better than the Giants, the Seahawks, the Panthers, the Chiefs, see ya, and the Bucks. Oh, and Cleveland. Cleveland's on there. New England, and Arizona. So they are certainly on the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the players' views of the owner. And I'm sure it has to do with, the team looking around and seeing how they're treating T and all of that. So we'll see, of course. So
if they sign Jamar, if they sign T, if they even make a slight splash in free agency, I will fucking go back on everything I've said about the owner. I'll eat some humble pie and I'll be stoked. So
on the note of eating, Cincinnati has an F for food in their facilities, an F- for treatment of family. So hopefully some of that can turn around for y'all, because
I was reading up on that, and it sounds like it's not so much treatment of family so much as it turns out, like 30 NFL teams offer daycare. Didn't know that. Like, they just have built-in daycare facilities. So like when you go to practice, you take your kid, there's daycare already at the facility. The Bengals do not offer that.
Don't have that.
They are one of 2 teams in the NFL who do not do that. So that I guess pisses a lot of players off. I didn't know that was a thing. I had no idea that was a thing. So I mean, fuck them kids. No. Moving on to another release. Pretty big one, if you ask me. Darius Slay getting released by the Eagles. While it is shocking, because he's definitely become a household name with them, I think it was the right move. He's entering his age 34 season, his 13th year in the NFL. He certainly wasn't a non-factor last year, but he wasn't the key piece to their defense that he's been in years past. I think they're saving themselves some money. They know he's kind of sunsetting. There's going to be teams that are still looking, for help in their secondary, teams like the Cardinals, the Colts, the Raiders, who just have horrible secondaries. Even an aging guy like Darius Slay could jump in and make a big difference for them. But it sounds like he's expressed interest to going to Pittsburgh, which I'm not too stoked to hear that. But at the same time, being 34 and your 13th year in the NFL, you get your body beat up. There's I don't see a world where he's coming in and he's holding down guys like Jamar Chase with how fucking fast he is. They're not holding down. He's not going to hold down Xavier Worthy. He's going to fucking blow by him. So I think at this point, Darius Slay's best option is to maybe sign a 1 or 2 year deal with a playoff
zone heavy team.
Yeah, a playoff contender. I think he should aim for a playoff contender. He should not aim for a Super Bowl contender. You got your 2 rings. No, I think he was still with Detroit when the Eagles won in 2017. I don't think he was with the Eagles yet.
I don't think so either.
I think he was still in Detroit.
He only 1 ring from what I can tell.
So it's just this most recent one. So you got your ring. You've made a legacy for yourself. He's been one of the most locked down corners for the last 5-6 years. He's made a good name for himself. Go collect a paycheck. Go see if you can make some miracle playoff run with a team that's like right on the cusp, and call it there.
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, the most, and I can't remember a big name like Darius Slay or a big name getting released after a Super Bowl run.
Yeah,
you'd think they should keep the pieces together. So I mean, the Eagles had a little over than $20 million in cap space. They're only saving $4.3 million against their individual cap by releasing Darius. So it's interesting. I agree with everything you said. He's aging. Go to a zone heavy team, buddy. I mean, the Lions, you could go over there, make an impact. Go to Cincinnati, you can make an impact. I was surprised. I wasn't seeing that coming. So
yeah, I figured if anything, maybe they sign into like another 1 year deal or something like that. Kind of do the Von Miller thing. He plays, maybe 50% of snaps this year and then calls it a career. And you were good in Detroit. You were fantastic in Philly. You got a Super Bowl with them, and your career with them, I think, is the right play. But, what we talked about in episode 1, this could be something, even if it's a small cap space difference, they're doing something just enough to keep people like Zach Bond or something like that. Every little bit makes a difference, especially, if Zach Bond really wants to stay in Philly, so he's willing to take a little bit more of a franchise friendly deal as opposed to a player friendly deal. And, that little bit of, cap space is enough to make things work. You never know. So I think it was the right call. But at the same time, with as good as he's been, maybe show him a little more respect and give him another 1 year deal and let him retire with you guys. So
yeah,
it's interesting to say the least, but regardless of where he lands in 2025, let's talk about 2025. I want to start with looking at who you think your big breakout player is going to be in 2025.
Yeah, I don't think we can not be biased when we talk about it. So I'm going to say the breakout player this year is going to be Bo Nix. When you looked at his season, he really didn't start doing a damn thing until like week 4, week 5.
Yeah.
And he still ended in the upper echelon statistically, even though a lot of the analysts, whatever you want to call these boneheads, say that Bo Nix is a bottom tier quarterback. Of course, a lot of my bias is going to come out, but I think players on the Broncos like a Marvin Mims is going to have a breakout year with the way that he ended last year, really coming up. I think Troy Franklin could quite honestly have a better year this year, getting a second year under Sean Payton, getting another chance to really learn an NFL scheme and catch the damn ball. And potentially with Denver getting a better potential tight end through the draft, which I've seen a lot of projections that Denver's looking tight end, potentially running back if it's available. Don't think it will be. But I'm gonna go Bo Nix, man. I truly think this season we have a bottom quarter strength of schedule this upcoming season. Our focus is going to be the NFC. Let me go back and check. Our key battle that they do every year is going to be the NFC East. So potential free win against the Giants. We always, unless it's the damn Super Bowl, play well against the Cowboys. So we've beat them every year for the last almost 14 years. My wife and I have been together. So um, Broncos and Washington will be an exciting matchup with the two new faces potentially in the NFL going at each other. I still think Philadelphia is going to have a lot of question marks, especially to get rid of the damn tush push. What are they going to be able to do to be aggressive? I don't know. So hey, man, my bias is going to come out because I truly do believe it. I do think breakout year for Bo Nix 2025.
I think he's going to have a better second year than his first year, assuming he can get on the train faster than he did this past season. But I tried to be as not biased as possible because I've got enough Bengals glazing going on later. So one, and it hurts to say because I never want to give the Chiefs credit for anything, Xavier Worthy. I think this kid is going to be crazy next year. He started off a little bit slow. They kind of utilized him in a couple of different ways, but it feels like towards the end of the season, he was becoming a key piece of their offense. I mean, he is quite literally statistically the fastest receiver in the NFL. He sharpens up his route running. Maybe they work on the playbook a little bit to utilize him a little bit more. I think Xavier Worthy is going to have a big, big year in year two. And that's not something I enjoy saying. I don't want to see the Chiefs succeed at anything ever. But it's hard to deny his skill set. It's hard to deny who he's got as a quarterback. And it's hard to deny that who he has as a coach. As much as I hate the Chiefs, Andy Reid is a spectacular coach. He's an offensive mastermind, and I'm sure they'll come up with some stupid fucking plays this offseason that utilize Worthy in a great way. I expect him to have a pretty stellar year two.
I hate you for saying that. I really do. It makes me sick.
I hate me for saying that. Like I said, I never want to give the Chiefs credit for anything, but I'm trying to look at it more statistically. I think Xavier Worthy, yeah, I think he's got a chance to be a big named receiver in the NFL. He just keeps his head down, keeps his nose clean, works hard. Kid's fast as fuck. He's got good hands. Even though they were garbage time touchdowns, I mean, he fucking torched the secondary, made a great diving catch in the end zone in the Super Bowl. He didn't get up and celebrate or anything like that. He literally got up, adjusted his jersey, dropped the ball, and went back to the sidelines because they're getting their ass kicked in the Super Bowl. But, you know, when you're a young kid like that and you catch a fucking touchdown pass in the Super Bowl, you're excited. You want to celebrate or something. But to have still the mental clarity to be like, who fucking cares? We're getting our ass kicked. Seems like a good kid. And I think he's got good work ethic. And assuming the Chiefs build some plays designed for him, he's going to have a big year.
Yeah, I'm not going to add to it because I hope he doesn't. I don't believe in the Chiefs. I mean, he had 98 targets, 59 receptions, second most targets on the Chiefs, second to, yeah, I'm sure you could guess who had the most targets on the Chiefs team. But he was second, 59 receptions it's about 60% of the time he's catching it compared to Travis Kelce, who got 133 targets to 97 receptions. Yeah. So, you know, you saw quite a bit of that earlier season with Worthy and Mahomes just not connecting. Deep balls weren't there, either overrunning it, underthrowing it, overthrowing it, whatever. I could see it. I'm not going to hope for it. So.
Yeah, I'm not hoping for it either. Just like I said, statistically, I think that he's going to be their sort of main target because he officially said he's coming back, but he's 35, 36, 37. Did not have a great year this year. Production's only going to get worse as he's getting older. So I think that's going to force the Chiefs to start broadening their horizons because they can't just do a quick dump to Travis Kelce for 7 yards every play. Yeah. So I think that's going to expand Xavier Worthy's usefulness within their franchise. So again,
I did add a non-biased one.
Okay.
That I'll just quickly say, because I do believe Bo Nix, that is biased, but it's something I do truly do believe. It's funny you mentioned him. I was going to say Ricky Pearsall as well
Yeah.
as my breakout. I'm not sure if you had him on your list or anything, but especially, and this was one that I kind of rethought through today with the news of Debo. He's going to be the number two.
Yep.
He's going to be that second option to, I mean, maybe potentially even first option. Brandon Ayuk didn't show up very well. Yes, he got hurt. But even when he was in there, he was not as good as people hoped because he sat out a lot. So he's coming off another off season of not really focused on the football aspects. He's just focused on getting healthy. So that is actually my non-bias choice. And it's when I even further consider given what happened with Debo this week. So
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of a coin toss for me between Xavier Worthy and Pearsall. Pearsall definitely was starting to make a name for himself towards the back half of the season. Granted, he didn't play for majority of the first half of the season recovering. But when he did get out on the field, especially towards sort of like the last few weeks of the season, he's putting up pretty good numbers. So
yeah,
to have a full, healthy off season, come in and hopefully stay healthy, play a full season, and now being definitely promoted up to number 2 behind Ayuk. And like
yeah,
you said, assuming Ayuk doesn't stay healthy or doesn't, perform as well as he's expected to, Pearsall could very well become their number 1. So,
yeah.
yeah, it definitely was a coin toss between those two for me. I think I definitely would rather see Pearsall succeed more because seeing the Chiefs succeed at anything fucking sucks. But two good kids, two good wide receivers, and I hope that their NFL careers flourish this year.
Yeah.
Moving to other predictions. Who do you think is going to be worse this year than they were last year? AFC and NFC. Let's start with the AFC.
Worse than they were last year. So I don't think there's any argument that the worst team in the AFC will continue to be the Browns. They didn't have a great season last year. They're not going to have a great season this year. But when I look to teams that I think are going to be worse, I'm looking at Pittsburgh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin's had what, 13 straight playoff appearances. They don't really have an identity at quarterback right now. They don't have a high draft pick unless they trade to get, a younger guy coming in. Their options are not the greatest, especially with Matt Stafford staying in LA. They have an aging Aaron Rodgers. They have a injury prone Kirk Cousins. They have who they have already that I don't think we'll see a same name at quarterback in 2025 than we did at 2024 in Pittsburgh. I just don't know that the options they have are going to be decent, especially considering the division. They're not going to beat y'all this year, I don't think, twice. Or I don't even think they beat y'all once. Baltimore's in that division. They, of course, the AFC North always plays really well against each other. But I just don't think. I think this is going to be the year that Pittsburgh doesn't make the playoffs. And I think this is one of the years when looking back at this episode when we do a 2025 closeout, and hopefully it'll be a happier one for the both of us. I was pretty happy, but with the way Denver ended, but Pittsburgh for the AFC is going to be my vote.
I'm aiming my shots at the Kings. The Chiefs are not going to be as good next year as they were this year. Not to say that they were good this year, but they still finished with 15 wins. Granted, they were very clearly proven to be the most fraudulent 15-win team in NFL history. They are going to have a pretty serious downfall. They got their ass beat in the Super Bowl. Bad. And a lot of people will call that Super Bowl hangover, whether that's a win or a just humiliating ass whooping like that. They're losing a lot of key pieces on defense. The dream of the three-peat is gone, so maybe the refs fucking stop throating Mahomes' cock and, actually make the right call. Absolutely no chance the Chiefs are going to be as good as they were this year. Now, don't get me wrong. I still think they're going to win the West. They're still going to be obviously in playoff contention. I don't think they're going to be Super Bowl contenders. I think My cap for them this year is if they get some lucky ref calls, AFC Championship game, if the refs actually fucking do their job like they're supposed to, they are going to get bounced in the divisional round. I don't think they're going to get the number 1 seed this year. I don't think they're going to get the first round bye. They'll probably win their wild card game, but I think they get bounced in the divisional to whoever they play against. So, yeah, no chance the Chiefs have another even close to 15 win season. I'm putting them at 10, maybe 11.
Yeah. I knew that's where you were going to go. I had to let you take that one because I can't sound too hatred to the Chiefs, but I absolutely agree with everything you said, minus the division. I don't think they're going to win the division this year. It's either going to be the Chargers or the Broncos. The Broncos easily should have beat them twice this year. Damn blocked field goal. That'll haunt my dreams. And yeah, we beat their backups. They're still NFL players. They still had the scheme for it. Whatever. What do you want to call it? Conspiracy you want to say? They let the Broncos beat them now. I don't think KC wins the division. That's the only piece that I'd throw out. I think they're going to come in as a wild card team. I do though agree if they get in on the wild card, they win, but then they absolutely lose in the divisional.
Get bounced, and with any luck, it'll be to the Broncos or the Bengals. But
that'd be so sweet.
That's for another time. NFC, who do you think is going to underperform?
I'm gonna take the low hanging fruit on this one from you. It's gonna be Minnesota, man. Minnesota had a Cinderella season this year. There's a lot of question marks. I do not think Minnesota comes out the way that 14-3. They were a 500 team at best coming into this season. So being 14-3 with who they had, with what they had to work with the schedule they had, Sam Darnold, who knows if he comes back? He's a big question mark. So what are the Vikings going to do with a potential JJ McCarthy insert? I think everybody can agree, even though Sam Darnold had a great season. JJ McCarthy is not going to have that season if he comes in essentially in his rookie season. I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit. No way the Minnesota Vikings win. I mean, Chicago got way better in the offseason with better coaching. Detroit is still going to be a juggernaut. Green Bay is always a juggernaut. So they have a tough division to even get through. So Minnesota, man, I don't think they're going to have near the success. I would say they're at best an 8-win team if they keep Sam Darnold. If they don't, maybe 6 to 8 with JJ McCarthy. But no way are they going to see 14-3 again.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think they're going to be anywhere near 14 wins. It sounds like from what I've heard, they are not going to franchise tag Sam Darnold, but they are not going to let him go without trying. Sounds like they are still going to try to extend him, but they're not going to franchise tag him. So if that's the case, I would assume I would assume Sam Darnold wants to stay. You just had your big breakout year with them. You put them in a spot where they did not in a million years think they would be. And if they're paying you decent money, he'd be crazy to try and go somewhere else. But yeah, Vikings definitely have a chance to enter their Packers arc where they sign Sam Darnold, let him play another 3 years, get JJ McCarthy kind of up and running, and then go in when the time's ready. But I went for someone who still missed the playoffs last year. It was close, but I think they're going to have a rough season this year. The Seahawks. Geno Smith, been a great feel-good story. Everyone loves seeing him come back. They wrote him off, but he didn't write back. It was a great story, but it's clear that he's not the guy that's going to get you into a deep playoff run or to the Super Bowl. He's putting up stats that are enough to get you into that purgatory, that 8-9 win season where maybe you sneak into a wild card or you just barely miss the playoffs. Now you're sitting with your 16th, 17th overall pick. Kind of just in that purgatory spot of not making the playoffs, but not sucking enough to get a good high draft pick. It sounds like the Seahawks want to deal Metcalf away, which could work out in their favor for some draft picks or something like that. But assuming that does happen, that leaves 32-year-old Tyler Lockett as their main target. So you're telling me the Geno Smith to Tyler Lockett connection is the one Seattle's been waiting for to get him to the Super Bowl? Abso-fucking-lutely not. I think we're going to see a severe drop in their offensive production. I'm putting them at 5, maybe 6 wins this season. I think they'll probably finish last in their division, which is a tough division. You've got the Rams, you've got the Niners. The team that you should finish better than is the Cardinals, but Kyler Murray kind of started coming alive towards the end of the season last year. So, maybe Cardinals make a couple of key additions and play a little bit better. I think it's very, very realistic to see Seahawks go from potential playoff contenders to finishing last in their division. I don't see them being so bad that they're vying for a number 1 overall pick, but I'm putting them down at 5, maybe 6 wins.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. The only thing playing in their favor is they do have one of the bottom-most strengths of schedule next season. I mean, a lot of that is, who knows what that actually means when all the pieces fall and,
right.
The season actually kicks off. But that's a good prediction too.
Well, from bad to good, who do you think is going to perform better than expected in the 2025 season? Again, we will start with the AFC.
It's a tough one. The AFC is so top heavy.
Yeah.
When I look at the landscape of the AFC from last year and think about it this year, I really can't see too many of these lower tiered teams being better than what they were last year. Raiders at 4-13. You see y'all later. You're another 4-win season. Jacksonville and Tennessee were at 4-3 wins. Cleveland 3 wins. New England is probably the one I'm looking to when I look at the divisions. 4-13 was where they ended last season. I really think the coaching swap is going to make a huge impact to that organization.
Yeah.
I still don't like Drake May's vibe. I don't know. He just seems weird to me. I can't really give you a real reason why other than just, I don't know. But I think that the Patriots, with the amount of space they have with their new coach coming in, is going to probably have the most change. Now, when we say, the better team from last year, they're not going to make the playoffs. Miami's, barring Tua, can stay healthy. Buffalo's not going anywhere. They're only going to get better with a young core that's surrounding the reigning MVP, Josh Allen. Maybe they get a 7 to 8 win season. They're not making the playoffs. They're not contending in their division, but they are going to be better than 4-13, I think.
8 wins would literally be double what they did last season. So that would be
true.
That would be a huge jump. That's a good one. I didn't even think about them as potentially turning.
It's a tough one because the AFC is so top heavy, man. Like, the teams that are going to do good are going to do good.
Yeah, I'm just gonna throw it in there real quick. Again, I do enough glazing over them. Bengals will be better this year than they were last year. They're absolutely making the playoffs.
You better knock on wood, dude.
I don't even need to. They're making the playoffs.
Shit.
This was a one-off year. Now, granted, unless someone gets hurt, that changes everything. But assuming all the key pieces stay in place, everyone stays healthy, no way the Bengals don't, make a good playoff run. But that's not my pick. My actual pick, kind of referring back to what you said of the AFC being very top-heavy, I'm going with the Texans. The Texans still made the playoffs last year, but their regular season wasn't that great. Their offensive line was horrible. Stroud was running for his life every play, trying to make something happen, which I saw this thing that was like the amount of time Patrick Mahomes had before he was pressured in the Super Bowl averaged roughly the same as how much time CJ Stroud had the entire season averaged.
Damn.
So CJ Stroud had a horrible offensive line, still got the Texans into the playoffs, still won the first round before they got bounced out by the Chiefs. But I think if the Texans focus on that offensive line, they could make a big push. You could see them in the AFC Championship game. So again, like you said, AFC is very top heavy, so it's very hard to grab one of these 4-win teams and be like, no, they're going to make a huge push. But I think the Texans, I put them somewhere in the range of 10 to 11 wins. Definitely winning their division, which is not hard to do when you're in a division with the Jags, the Colts, and the Titans. So that's the teams you play twice each year. Makes it pretty easy to get 5-6 wins out of that. But yeah, I think the Texans. Like I said, so long as they focus on that offensive line, they could make a really, really big playoff push this next year. So I'm looking at them to maybe make a pretty big statement in 2025.
While I agree, I think a bigger question mark for me with the Texans is going to be their health.
Yeah.
Tank Dell, is he going to be able to play football again? I mean, he had a gruesome injury, man. Stephon Diggs, he's getting older, coming off another injury. They have a solid core around CJ Stroud. He had a sophomore slump this year. I'll knock on freaking wood, buddy. The Broncos and Bo Nix, hopefully that doesn't happen, sophomore slump. But CJ did. A lot of that was due to injury. A lot of that was due to pressure that he was taking every single snap. But I do like that pick too. My question mark, though, is more so in the range of how healthy is that team going to get by the start of the year, by the start of training camp, to actually start getting reps in, to start getting that consistency down before they're, in the middle of the season where they were this season, just kind of struggling to get that rhythm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, Stroud kind of has that energy about him where he could kind of take a no-name wide receiver and make them something great. Tank Dell was a 5th-round pick or a 3rd-round pick, maybe. I don't exactly remember where he landed, but I don't think he was expected to come in and be a huge difference maker, and he ended up being one because he had that instant spark with C.J. Stroud. So I think even if they get some aging veteran wide receiver, or they pick up a couple of guys in later rounds, if they can kind of get that spark, I think CJ Stroud can make them good wide receivers too. But definitely health is a big thing. I think Tank Dell will come back. Because, I mean, we saw fucking Alex Smith come back from almost death. So I think Tank Dell will come back, but I don't think it's going to be this year. I think he's going to miss this entire season, which would be smart. Take as much time as you need, especially if you ever want to play football again. Take the time that you need. But yeah, I think CJ Stroud kind of has that spark where if he can just connect with 1 or 2 wide receivers on the roster, even if they're later round picks, they can make some magic happen. So, but health is definitely a big concern with them.
Yeah.
NFC.
You had a good guess, though. He was the 5th-round pick.
5th round. Okay.
Texans. Yeah, that was a good guess.
So, like I said, I don't think they expected him to come in and be some big game changer. I think he just played well, practiced hard, and had a great connection with CJ Stroud. So, obviously not something you can bank on like, oh, we could easily repeat that. But, like I said, in your late round drafts, maybe your 5th, 6th, and 7th, if you're feeling crazy, you grab a couple of wide receivers, you go after some of the undrafted guys, and you just see what you can make work with CJ Stroud. Yeah. NFC.
This is an easy one for me. The New York, not the New York Giants. Y'all suck. The San Francisco 49ers, they have the easiest schedule coming into 2025. They are not going to go undefeated, as much as my buddy is going all up and up about an undefeated season. No, that's not happening, dude. The 49ers are easily going to be better than 6-11. Again, injuries, just like we talked about with Houston, plagued San Francisco. I think a lot of people, because of how much they sucked and were irrelevant this season, kind of overshadowed some of the bigger name teams that were seeing some injuries like Houston. But I mean, San Francisco was down Christian McCaffrey. They were down Brandon Ayuk. I mean, those are the 1 and 2 decision points in your offense.
Yeah.
And everybody goes out and says, oh man, Brandon Purdy's just a game manager. Who cares what he is? He was doing what he needed to do to win games. Coach Shanahan was putting him in the position to win games, and that's what they're going to do this season. I really hope CMC comes back healthy. He's one of my favorite non-Bronco players. I love CMC. I think he's going to have a bounce back year. He's going to be, in my mind, as long as he stays healthy, a candidate for comeback player of the year. And we're not talking about that level of detail, but I'm going to put his name out there already because that scheme, the Shanahan scheme with running backs, I mean, they were putting in just about, they could put me back there and I could have got a yard potentially, right? Like that's how good the Shanahan running scheme is. So a healthy CMC, a full year off, get himself right. That is easily a team that I can see getting 13, 14 wins and being in the conversation again for the number one seed in the NFC. And just like they've done before, I think if they get in the tournament, they're gonna get far with how Kyle puts that team together. If they can stay healthy with the pieces that they have, I mean, their defense is still solid, as long as they can keep some of those pieces that are still in conversation that we talked about in prior episodes. But easy pick with San Francisco for me.
Yeah.
Easy.
I wanted to go for San Francisco, but same deal. It just kind of felt like low-hanging fruit. There's no way they're not better than they were last year.
No.
Same deal. Health, health is one of those things that you can never put a guarantee on, but they absolutely no way they're not better than they were last year. So especially for the teams that were better, I tried to go for a little bit more of the like on the cusp teams that really I could make a great prediction and look like a genius, or they could fall flat on their face and I look like a fucking asshole. But I'm going with the Falcons. I think even with their team being in shambles as it was last year, being led by Kirk Cousins, they still were in the hunt for the NFC South for pretty much the whole season. They were 1 or 2 games, going a different direction from making the playoffs. And that was with Kirk Cousins playing fucking horribly.
Yeah.
So, granted, that does come with playing in one of the worst division in the NFL. I think AFC South is definitely the worst. Or no, sorry. I think AFC South is the second worst. I think NFC South is pretty by far the worst in the NFL. So that gives them a leg up to make some things happen. But they're moving on from Kirk Cousins. Michael Penix Jr. showed a lot of promise in the few games that he played. I think him in tandem with Bijan Robinson is going to be a very, very deadly offense. I think they would be smart to maybe try to deal Kyle Pitts and get some draft stock out of him, because he's always showed these flashes, and then those flashes are immediately followed up with a ball hitting him directly in the fucking face and he can't catch it. So I don't think a different quarterback throwing him the ball is going to fix that. I didn't keep too many tabs on Drake London this year. I know his rookie year, he was popping off pretty good. So maybe having a better ball thrower will help him. So, I mean, you've got Michael Penix Jr., you got Drake London, and you got Bijan Robinson, 3 very, very bright, shining stars, very young. That could be a big boost to their offense. Yeah, they were right on the cusp last year, despite being as bad as they were. Anytime I watched them, you watch the game and you're like, wow, this is ugly, but they won 13-9 or whatever. So I think with a new young face leading the offense, and then the couple of key pieces that they have around him, I think they could make a push to win the NFC South. I'm not saying we're going to see them, pushing for a Super Bowl or anything like that, but I think they could probably finish around 10 wins, win their division, and maybe even a wild card win, make it to the divisional. So that would be a pretty big increase from what we saw from them over the last few years.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I could see it, but who do you go with? Because they still got Kirk on the books, because they pulled the old Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson BS over there in Atlanta and paid old Kirk I think he still has 3 years left on his deal, and he's a top 5 paid quarterback in the NFL.
Yep.
So do you bite the bullet like what Denver did, cut him? Maybe he goes and plays on a veteran contract like what little old Russ did for the Steelers, and you're still on the books in Atlanta. And do you start Michael Penix? Because I do think he's the better quarterback, at least at this stage, than Kirk Cousins. Gives him better options. I mean, Kirk's 36.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I think the Falcons would be smart to move forward with Penix. Whether they release him or they keep him, they got to pay Kirk. So maybe they just throw him down the depth chart, quarterback 2, quarterback 3. He rides the pine. That pisses him off enough where he requests a trade, and maybe some stupid team is willing to trade for him and then take that contract.
The Raiders.
Exactly. And then they take that contract. And then now they've got Penix. They don't have to pay Kirk Cousins. That would be best case scenario for Atlanta. Yeah, I think absolutely you move forward with Penix. with the promise that he showed at the end of the season, definitely you make that your guy moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. And I think he has 3 more years on his contract.
Yeah, I think it was a 4-year,
4-year deal.
160,
It's
150.
crazy.
Yeah, for 36-year-old Kirk Cousins coming off of a fucking torn Achilles, and you're gonna pay him a 4-year. Yeah, I want to say it was 4-year, 150. That's just asinine.
One of the top things when you type in 4-year, $180 million contract.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
That's just stupid. That's just not smart money. I've got the Bengals over here pinching pennies to burn dollars, and then you've got the Falcons like 36-year-old Kirk Cousins who's just recovering from an Achilles tear, $180 million. We need him. It's like, dude, what the fuck? But yeah, no, like I said, best case scenario, you throw him down the depth chart. He gets pissed off enough to request a trade. A team is stupid enough to actually go for that trade. Now you don't have to pay him. You're moving forward with your future. Absolutely move forward with Penix.
So they have an out in 26. They'd have to keep him this year. Base salary $27 million in 25. So his salary only gets worse as he got older. So he was paid 12.5 last year, 27.5 this coming year, and then 35 mil the next 2 seasons in 26 and 27. So he could the Falcons could potentially cut him in 26 and have a $35 million dead cap hit. But that's still a lot of freaking money, man. Oof.
I want to say Kirk Cousins is like in the top 5 of earningest quarterbacks of all time, like based on his contracts. I think all of his contracts combined have him up over 400 million or something like that in his NFL earnings.
Career earnings through 20. I have some crazy sport track for
perfect.
$295 million he's made through 2025. If he gets that extra cash through that Falcons contract, that does put him upwards of 300 million.
So
that's crazy.
Look at Kirk Cousins' whole career and tell me that any of it has been worth 300 million combined. Like,
you don't like that?
No, absolutely not. You know, you pay Joe Burrow 4 years, 255 million. That makes sense. That guy's having you played some of the best football you've ever seen, you know?
4-time Pro Bowler Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. I mean, this is his 12th or 13th year. I don't remember exactly, but I mean
14th season.
14th. So you're telling me
this will be his 15th.
You're telling me in 15 years you've made 4 Pro Bowls? And your career earnings are almost at 300 million?
That's a lot of money.
No chance.
That's a lot of money.
Something Kirk Cousins will never win, MVP.
I like that transition. That's a good one.
I'm glad you liked it. A little bit of shade towards Kirk. But
yeah.
MVP is a tough thing to predict, I feel like, because the fluctuation in production, in health, things like that. Here's where my glazing comes in. If he even does remotely close to what he did last year, no chance Joe Burrow doesn't win. No chance. Because, I mean, I we do research on this because we want to sound not like fucking casuals when we talk about football. But
we knew this before, let's be honest. The podcast didn't matter. We're nerds about this stuff.
So it's... A lot of the analysts think Joe Burrow, and just about every analyst who was talking about this last MVP race said that by statistics, far and away Joe Burrow should have won, but for whatever fucking reason, everyone thinks wins are a quarterback stat. And I already had my crash out on that last week, but you know, if the Bengals win 11 games and make the playoffs in a decent seeding and Joe Burrow remotely comes close to what he did this last year, absolutely no chance he doesn't win it.
I was hoping you were going to let me go first because I was going to say Joe Burrow, honestly. No glaze. But since we're going to have to change Bo Nix. No, I'm just kidding. Bo Nix isn't MVP worthy yet. I can't change my answer because I agree. I do think, barring, of course, injuries and the MVP being a quarterback award, that we're not seeing some wild card running back, receiver, or defensive player win MVP. Yeah, right. Sadly, that won't happen, but I can't disagree that I think the Bengals have the third easiest strength of schedule in 2025. Um, I can't think of any reason why Joe's not going to get any better, barring his health. That's always been
I'll knock
something
on wood for that one.
that's always been something I've talked to you about with Joe Burrow. I loved he's one of my favorite non-Bronco players as well, but it's like every other season, some sort of bugaboo happens and he can't stay on his feet. Either it's because of him or it's because the line's down his throat. I mean, you got rid of that dog do center, so that's only gonna make your line better next year. I can't disagree. I would honestly think at this stage, unless I know you're gonna hate it, but Lamar Jackson does what he did this season too. That I still think is the only question mark, especially how close the MVP was between Lamar and Josh Allen. If Lamar has another season like what he had this season, it's going to Lamar.
I'll never give Lamar his roses because he plays for the Ravens. If he up and his contract ends or whatever, and it's like Lamar goes to the Dolphins or some shit, I'll root for him, sure. But as a Raven, I will never ever give him his roses.
Yeah, it's like me and the Chiefs. I understand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I watch him tear up our defense twice a year. I watch him on the highlight that you still see 6 years later where he fucking busted a 60-yard touchdown run and then hit a fucking spin move at midfield and made two Bengals defenders fucking run into themselves, And then you got the commentator, "Oh, he broke his ankles." I will never fucking give Lamar his flowers in Baltimore. Go somewhere else, and then I'll give you your flowers. But
I understand. It's like, yeah.
I know you get it. I know you
but
get it.
I mean, he almost had 1,000 yards rushing as a quarterback. The guy had 48 or not, excuse me. Why can I not see? There it is. He had 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. If he puts anything close to that, I mean, those are unbelievable numbers. And we had the conversation about MVP.
Let's be real though. That's 41 total touchdowns. He only had 27 through the air. 28.
Correct. 20, let's see.
And the other 14 on the ground.
Yeah, something to that matter.
If we're gonna call MVP a quarterback fucking award, then be a quarterback, not a running back, not a utility player who can fucking throw and catch and run and whatever. Be a quarterback. Throw 47 touchdowns through the air like Big Dick Joe.
That was 41 throwing touchdowns.
No.
41 throwing touchdowns. He had 4 touchdowns on the ground.
I thought he had 27 throwing touchdowns and 14 on the ground. Oh, fuck. Well, that makes me eat a little bit of humble pie. That's an insane season.
Yeah.
I'm still not going to give him his flowers. Still fuck him, but...
Unless any of my fantasy league people watch this, I always get Lamar in fantasy football. So I know a lot about Lamar in fantasy. They somehow gave me Lamar and Derrick Henry this season. I made it all the way to the end. Didn't freaking win. That's the 4th season in a row I've lost one regular season game and lose in the playoffs. But if Lamar puts anything close to this, it don't matter what somebody else does unless they produce Peyton Manning numbers, which, by the way, is still the best quarterback year in 16 games, not 17. But I'm not going to get on that soapbox. I cannot disagree with Joe Burrow any further unless Lamar gets anywhere close to what he did this season.
Well, here, I'll jump on that soapbox. Peyton Manning had the greatest quarterback season of all time, and they made it all the way to the Super Bowl. Granted, they lost in horrifying fashion, but since we're on the topic...
As soon as the first fucking snap, I knew they were going to lose.
Right over his head.
Yep.
On the topic of the Super Bowl, what are your predictions?
That's actually the good one. Hold on real quick, because I still keep it. We still have the program, even though it hurts.
It hurts to look at.
It hurts to look at, but it was an unbelievable season nonetheless.
I have a picture in my wallet of me head to toe Bengals, my daughter head to toe Bengals, my sister head to toe Bengals. My mom took a picture on a Polaroid, and it was the day of the Bengals and Rams Super Bowl, and I still keep it in my wallet, even though every time I see it, I'm like, fuck, but I still keep it in my wallet because that was cool, you know. In all the years of watching the Bengals, I never thought I'd get to see them go to the Super Bowl. So it was really, really cool, regardless of what the outcome was.
Yeah.
Super Bowl though, okay. I know we're probably both going to have a little bit of bias here. Let's go with what we want to see and what we actually think we're going to see. I'll just rip the Band-Aid off. What I want to see, Bengals Commanders. Obviously, I want the Bengals to win, but I think that would be one of those big sparks flying offensive games, you know, one of those very entertaining Super Bowls, 35-33 with a minute left and one other team is driving. And, you know, it could be a very, very entertaining game. Whether or not the Bengals are equipped defensively to make it that far, and whether or not the Commanders can keep Jaden Daniels healthy and he can produce as well as he did this last year, kind of all to be determined. But that's the one I want to see. The one I think is most realistic of us seeing, Bills and Lions. These are two fan bases that have just been suffering for decades, and now both of their teams are juggernauts in their division. They're juggernauts in their conferences. And I think seeing something like the Bills and Lions, that's one of those ones where it's like, no matter who wins, you kind of feel good. Granted, obviously, you and me have more ties to Buffalo than we do Detroit. But my whole life, regardless of what sport, I've always been an underdog enjoyer. If my team doesn't make it to the playoffs or they get bounced, and I'm immediately like, who's the lowest seed? Who's the least likely to make this run? And that's who's
not for. Patrick Mahomes.
Exactly. So, Bills and Lions, if that ended up being the Super Bowl, no matter who wins, someone's getting the franchise's first Super Bowl. That would be a great story to see. And much like the Bengals and Commanders hope that I have, those are two insanely high-powered offenses. That could be one of those, like, the Super Bowl combining for fucking 90 points or some shit. So that's the one I think is most likely. I don't know what the betting odds are on it, but I think Bills-Lions, that's a very realistic one we could see.
Yeah. Well, if we're going with what I hope, Denver and Dallas, because man, would that be something special for Kat and I. My
that might be a house divided, though, man. Regardless of who wins, it might be some couch sleeping for a few nights.
It would be crazy. My wife's a Cowboys fan. She's not one of those crazy, obnoxious, like, this is our year Cowboys fan. She's very reasonable. But man, would that be something special for us to experience that. Of course, I'm going to root for the Broncos, but I mean, even the Cowboys might be happy for Kat. She gets to actually watch her football team win a Super Bowl. That would be what I'd want to see. What I think is going to happen is still the Broncos. No, I'm just kidding. I think this upcoming year is, and this is going to hurt you to your core, is the year that Baltimore and Lamar Jackson will make their way through the AFC. Again, the season Lamar had, they're close with Buffalo. The Buffalo-Baltimore is still one of those games that you look forward to if it's on the schedule. You circle it. You're gonna watch that game. I think this is the year that Lamar gets the better of the AFC. I think he brings the Ravens to the Super Bowl. And I was gonna also throw Detroit, but I was also gonna throw Detroit, but I'm gonna throw a different one in the mix. I don't want to copy you on that one. I'm gonna go Green Bay.
That was a toss up for me too. I think Green Bay could make a good run this year.
I think Jordan Love's only getting better. He had a rougher end of his season than what people hoped or expected him to. But I think this is the year that the Packers get back. And I mean, that you're going to be the biggest Packer fan I've ever seen if my prediction's true. But I think a lot of people would really enjoy that Super Bowl, Baltimore and Green Bay. I mean, that's been a long time for those two teams. Great franchises. Not much of a rivalry between those two teams that I know about. Yeah. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's I again will never give Baltimore their flowers. They've been enough. They've been enough, you know. They've got what 2 Super Bowl wins since the year 2000. I think they won in 2000 and then they won in 2012. That was, I think.
When fucking Broncos, Raheem the Dream missed the ball by that much when he tried to smack it. Oh God, that stings, man.
That was the Mile High Miracle, wasn't it?
Yeah,
for the
that's
Ravens.
not what we call it here. That's not what we do here.
Yeah,
nope.
I like I said, I will never give the Ravens their flowers, but I would be stupid to say that they are not one of the best teams in the NFL. I'd be stupid to say they're not one of the scariest teams in the NFL, and I'd be stupid to say that they do not have the capability to make a Super Bowl push. Playoff Lamar is obviously a meme, though, and it's for good reason. He does not perform in the playoffs. Granted, his game versus Buffalo, he did. He played spectacularly, and had a very unfortunate drop by someone who is usually pretty sure-handed.
Crazy drop. Oh my God. Poor Mark Andrews, man. That nuts.
It's a tough thing to see. But
John Harbaugh is always weird in the playoffs, man. I mean, this year was better, but the years before, man, it would just be Lamar throw the damn ball. You had Derrick Henry in the background in the backfield, which they did better this year about establishing a run against the Bills, and that's why it was so close. But the years before, it was just let's throw the ball like 30, 40 times a game, but that's not Lamar's game. So I think John Harbaugh's finally getting in his brain, like, all right, let me play to the strengths of our regular season and do that in the postseason, which it was successful minus Mark Andrews. That heartbreaking drop. I still can't believe it thinking back to that. I forgot about that until you just mentioned it. That was that's not the guy I'm expecting to drop the ball.
That's one thing I will absolutely give the Ravens, is that connection between Harbaugh and Lamar is unreal. I think it was 2, maybe 3 years ago. There was a clip that was going viral. They scored a touchdown with, a minute left in the game or something, and they're down by 1 now. So they can kick a PAT to tie it, or they could go for 2. And after they score the touchdown, you see Harbaugh pull the headset off and immediately scream out to Lamar, hey, what do you want to do? Do we kick the PAT? Do you want to kick the PAT, or do you want to go for 2? And Lamar said, fuck it, let's send it for 2. And they got it. They won the game. So that connection that they have, that trust that Harbaugh has in Lamar, that communication that Lamar shares with Harbaugh, that's something every QB and head coach should strive for. That is an absolutely insane tandem. And the amount of trust and respect that they have for each other has made them the juggernaut that they are. So
that's what we needed at Denver against y'all when Bo was saying, let's go for 2. That's going to haunt me. And I know when the Ravens won that game, you were punching the air, man. I know it.
Yep.
You did not like that win, but yeah. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. What do you think? Do you agree with our 2025 predictions? Do you have any other thoughts? Leave any comments you have down below. We're on YouTube. We're on X. Our TikTok's going to kick off this week. Leave some comments. Let us know what you're thinking. If you're not subscribed to us, give us a like. Give us a follow. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We're going to start getting our podcast out for audio only as well. So you can also just listen to it if you're on the road, driving to work or whatever. But thanks for tuning in. Next week, what do we got on the agenda?
I think next week is day 1 of NFL free agency. And day 1 of NFL free agency always has some crazy shit happen. So there's going to be some stuff to talk about next week. I guarantee it.
And hopefully there's stuff to talk about for our teams, man. I know we both have some hopes and dreams for our teams this free agency. So hopefully there's some big splashes. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll be back next week. It'll be at the same time. So look for us Tuesday, Wednesday for that episode so we can get some thoughts out for free agency.